Welcome to Corporate Warrior, the podcast that brings you the best advice on how to improve your health, optimize performance, and maximize productivity. With your host, Lawrence Neal.
This episode is brought to you by ARX, the most innovative, efficient, and effective all-in-one exercise machines I have ever seen. I was really impressed with my ARX workout. The intensity and adaptive resistance was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I love how the machine enables you to increase the negative load to fatigue target muscles more quickly, and I love how the workouts are effortlessly quantified. The software tracks maximum force output, rate of work, total amount of work done, and more in front of you on screen, allowing you to compete with your previous performance to give you and your clients real-time motivation. The ARX uses a computer-controlled motor to give you the exact amount of resistance your clients need 100% of the time. This means that the resistance can never become dangerous, is intuitive and simple to use, and can provide you with all of the results you and your clients are looking for in a fraction of the time. ARX is highly effective and efficient in delivering all of the benefits of exercise, including increased strength, muscle mass, cardiovascular conditioning, bone mineral density, and injury recovery. As well as being utilized by many high-intensity trainers to deliver highly effective and efficient workouts to their clients, ARX comes highly recommended by world-class trainers and brands, including Bulletproof, Tony Robbins, and Ben Greenfield Fitness. To find out more about ARX and get $500 off install when you place an order, please go to ARXfit.com and mention Corporate Warrior in the How Did You Hear About Us field. So again, to get $500 off install when you order, head on over to ARXfit.com and enter Corporate Warrior in the How Did You Hear About Us field. Hey guys, I am Lawrence Neal and welcome to another episode of Corporate Warrior, the podcast that shows you how to get the most out of your high-intensity training and start and grow your strength training business. My former guests include the who's who in high-intensity training, people like Dr. Doug McGuff, Drew Bay, and Jim Flanagan, diet and metabolism experts like Dr. Ted Naiman, successful strength training entrepreneurs like Luke Carlson, Roger Schwab, and Adam Zickerman, sports scientists, high-intensity training bodybuilders, New York Times best-selling authors, and everything in between. Quick announcement, Corporate Warrior and Hit Uni are offering you a saving of 15% off high-intensity training courses and 60 days free access to the Corporate Warrior membership, where I help you grow your strength training business. If you're interested in improving your personal training skill set, upgrading your team, starting or improving your strength training business, this is a great opportunity for you. This offer is only available till the end of July, so head on over to hituni.com/CW and check it out now. Please note that the 60-day free access to the Corporate Warrior membership is only valid if you purchase a master, personal trainer, or CPD high-intensity training course. It is not available with the DIY high-intensity training course. So once more, head on over to hituni.com/CW and check it out now. My guests today are the founder of Everstrong San Francisco, or EverstrongSF, Abe Williams, and ARX product specialist, Mike Pullano. In this episode, we dive into how Abe has been able to take advantage of a great opportunity and start and grow a strength training business in San Francisco. And we also have Mike on the call to talk about the role ARX is playing in all of that. We discuss Abe's story. So he's got a really interesting story about how he got started in fitness. He's done a lot in his own personal fitness journey. And like many people, I guess, who listen to this podcast and have been guests on this podcast, came across high-intensity strength training and everything radically changed in terms of the way he looked at exercise and his own exercise regime, which is now, I guess, much more infrequent and much safer. And how this basically fueled his passion to actually start his own fitness business. We go deep on Everstrong's business model and why they chose ARX as part of that business model. So if you're kind of in a phase in your business, maybe you're just starting, or maybe you have an existing business and you're contemplating ARX, then this is a really, really good episode for you in terms of looking at how another business has actually implemented ARX in a very successful way. I do think it's certainly something that each business has to look at in their own particular context to find out if ARX is the best fit for them. And I certainly think this is a very useful resource for you. And we talk about how ARX is able to help you kind of differentiate your training business. I think with a lot of competitive products out there, ARX does sometimes give you the edge in terms of being probably one of the most state-of-the-art pieces that you can acquire at this time in terms of its ability to track data and provide adaptive resistance during the full range of motion within an exercise. And we talk about much, much more than that. This was a really fun conversation. I'm really excited to finally get this out there. We actually recorded this ages ago, but for many reasons, it's only just coming out now. And so excited to get this out to you guys and excited for you to listen to this. For the show notes for this episode, please go to corporatewarrior.co/podcast, where you'll also find a full list of episodes. And now I give you Abe Williams and Mike Pullano. Mike, Abe, welcome to Corporate Warrior.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to be here.
Cool. Good to have you both on the show. So, as we've both been, all of us, have been discussing prior to recording this, Abe, you've got a really interesting story, which kind of led to you co-founding Everstrong and then deploying ARX equipment there, and then obviously driving a lot of success in that business. And I'd just like to really start off with understanding more about your story in terms of exercise, and perhaps you could take us on a little journey there, and we can start there.
Sure. Yeah. So I've always been interested in movement, but it hasn't necessarily been my career. I've always been doing sort of movement on the side of what I was doing before. I used to work in technology. I led product and design for startups here in the Bay Area of San Francisco. And I've always been interested in movement. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I had little G.I. Joe figures with little rubber bands in the side of them, and I was always having them flip around. I mean, so in, I think it was 2007, I decided I wanted to start training people on the side, and I really got into the subject. And let's see, I did a personal training school, and it was like 6 months long, 5 hours a day. It was the National Personal Training Institute, and it seemed like a lot of overkill in terms of like how long it was and how involved it was. But I really learned a lot in that. But I really felt like that really prepared me to be able to understand some of the things that Art Devaney was saying, and I really got a good understanding for how hormones are really what we're trying to influence when we're doing, whether it's fitness or whether it's sleep or whether it's eating. And I started to train people on the side. I also really got into, I had a bodybuilding phase. I had a powerlifting phase. I really began to experiment. I began to experiment with long distance running. I ended up doing like a solo bicycle trip across Alaska. I really got into CrossFit at one point when CrossFit was sort of new. And from like 2009, 2011, I became a CrossFit instructor, and I was a local competitor. I did Chinese acrobatics for 3 years here in San Francisco. I really just love movement. And the thing that just happened to me as I was going through and trying all this stuff out is I just kept getting injured for one reason or another. All those injuries, it was just sort of frustrating to me because I could sort of get to like a particular level of fitness or strength, but then I would get hurt and have to take some time off and let something recover. Especially, I really did overdo it in CrossFit and gave myself all kinds of tendonitis in just about every joint. And I would say that I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought it was a lot of fun. I just couldn't take it. And so I have always been interested in movement. And then let's see, it was the I read The 4-Hour Body that came out like years ago, right, by Tim Ferriss. And there was a mention in his book about these people who weren't training very much, and but getting very strong. And so I was like, that's interesting. What's that? And that was the reference to Body by Science. So I got that book and I read it. And a friend of mine, a real powerhouse of a guy, was reading it too. And he said, let's try this out. Let's go see if this stuff really works. Because if it does, it means that we're really overdoing it. And we don't have to do as much as we're doing now. And so we decided we would do it. We found a place here in San Francisco where we could go and test it out. Got blood work done beforehand because we're totally measurement geeks. And we got DEXA scans, and then we went in and did the training. And my trainer was Owen Dockham, and who's now my business partner. And when you do this kind of training, your trainer is tracking everything that you're doing, and then they can show you like how far you've come. And so I think it was in 3 months we had both gotten a lot stronger, but we didn't have any injuries. I was like, oh, that's a pretty strong proof point for me. And then we did subsequent DEXA scans like 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months. And I would say that my scan at 3 months, because I was already in pretty good shape, didn't look so different, but the 6-month scan looked a lot different. And the 9-month scan looked a lot different in terms of lower body fat, lower visceral fat, more dense bones, more muscle on the frame. And so I was like, wow.
Could you just elaborate on the type of, because I'm guessing you being a kind of advanced trainee at that point, you probably saw very marginal gains, but do you remember the actual improvement in sort of lean muscle mass at that point?
Yeah, I put on 5 pounds of muscle mass across that time period. And at the time, I think I weighed about 100 and I'm not a large person. I weighed about 165 pounds, and I think my body fat was about I think it might have been 18% at the time. And then I had dropped down to 154 pounds or something like that. Body fat's about 9%.
Nice.
And I might be mixing up my timelines a little bit because I'm 9% is what I am right now. But I got down to about, I think it was about 12% body fat. And I think it was in that 6 month period, that 9 month period. And the other thing that I was doing at the time was experimenting with intermittent fasting. And so that was another variable in addition to the training that I did have going on. But the scans looked great. I was totally convinced. My blood work looked really good. And I was like, wow, this stuff is kind of hard to explain, but really valuable. That's perfect. I love that. Because when people get it, they really get it. And so I began to bring people into the gym, and I think we brought Owen maybe like, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 15 clients because we just kept bringing people in. And then we were like, I was thinking to myself, like, this is like a really, really good business. Like, people are really happy. They're getting great results from this. And then they're always so shocked that it's only a short amount of time each week that they're training. And so I said to Owen, I'd really like to switch out of my main career and do this. And he had a facility in Emeryville, Live Oak, strength that was doing really well. And he said, there's a lot of people that want this training, and I'd totally go into business with you. So we opened this place, EverstrongSF, here at 218 Fillmore in November of 2017. And I think if I were just to summarize I mean, I could tell you all the details about like opening the doors and what we had to do and trials and tribulations and scary parts, fun parts. I'm at a really, really fun part right now, which is great because I've had some people training now, and I just get great stories from people all the time about the positive changes that they're having in their life. And like that on top of like my own health, seeing other people get healthy, and then having like this business that's just like really just like a really strong foundation. It feels really, really good, and I feel really fortunate, and I'm really glad that made the change and made some of the decisions that I did.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, firstly.
Thank you.
That's an awesome achievement. So this is, I guess, creates quite a neat segue into talking a bit more about the business. Obviously, you've spoken a little bit already about how it kind of started, how you went into business with Owen. Obviously, I know Owen very well, and he's been on the show as well to talk about mostly networking and Live Oak. But yeah, just be very interested to hear, how you got started, and how you position Everstrong as a unique offering.
Well, I will say that it was really surprising to me that in the San Francisco Bay Area that there wasn't already an ARX facility somewhere, and then given the value of this 20-minute workout once a week and what it could do, I was just really surprised that there weren't more of these kinds of places in San Francisco, given how busy everybody is and how everybody wants to do the most minimum effective thing. And so I thought, Mike, this is just perfect for ARX. And so I decided if I was going to pay commercial rents in San Francisco, I wanted it to be close to my house. And so I just started looking for locations, talking to different landlords, trying to find a place that I could rent and do this. And of course, it was a little bit scary with commercial rents, and then I was going to be leasing equipment, and nobody really had a business here in San Francisco on the ARX, so it was it felt like a little bit of a gamble, but I'll tell you what I did is I went and I trained with Pat Icaro, who had an ARX Omni. We actually have his Omni now, but I went to go train with him, and he showed me. So I got a really experiential time with the Omni, and I was looking at it, and I was like, this is totally going to work. This is totally going to work. Look how everything is measured. Look how it's showing you things that you can't see normally. And I just sort of realized how much of the training that was going on before was so much of a black box, so to speak. You sort of do something and you don't know what's going on. And then, you sort of measure yourself like weeks later. So I just thought this is totally going to work. So we had a number of places that kind of fell through. And then I think I told the ARX guys, like, hey, sorry, I need to get out of the agreement. I can't get a place. But then I did finding a place right here in Lower Haight, and decided to sign the lease, got everything. Well, signed the lease, and then signed the agreement, and it's like, okay, now we got to turn this into a strength lab. And I will say that I had plans for some other equipment in this place, but I made a mistake. We have wood floors with joists, not concrete floors. So putting like a MedX leg press in this place is not a good idea. Not to put like a lot MedX equipment on a wood floor, right? And I had a huge panic on this place, But anyway, I got a structural engineer to come out. We had everything checked out, and everything was totally fine. But that was another reason why I decided to go with the ARX, because it was lighter. But I feel like that was like a perfect storm, because for how we're different in the neighborhood. I mean, there's like a gym down the street, and they're a gym, and they've got free weights and TRX and things like that. And people go in there and they train for an hour, like 3 times a week or something like that. Right. So on my window, I mean, it says this is 20 minutes once a week, 1 set. And that's all it takes. And people are like, what? What is that? And then they're like, I got to see what the heck is going on here. And I have the windows opaque, so you can't see in. And so it's a bit curious. I mean, there's like a hair salon. There's a really famous place, Upper Playground, right next to us. This is a fantastic mixed commercial use retail district. So there's a lot of foot traffic, and people are going by and they're like, what is this place? And so when they come in, and I'm like, not only, are we saying that it's 20 minutes once a week, but we have robots, man. We have strength training robots. And maybe on the ARX side, you don't talk about it that way, but I totally talk about it that way. And people are like, what is this? And then they come try it out. And then, well, that's where we are now. I'll stop there. Maybe you have other questions.
Well, yeah. I mean, Mike, maybe you can answer this one. I was absolutely shocked when I found out that you were the first ARX facility in San Francisco, because I'm thinking incredibly efficient, super effective, but also quantified. And like the quantified self is obviously a big movement. You're part of that movement, Abe, from what it sounds like. Yeah. In Silicon Valley. So, yeah, I mean, Mike, why do you think that is? Why do you think there's not been more take up? Maybe there is now. I don't know. But, yeah, why does that happen?
Well, we've had a lot of interest, I should say, in the peninsula area, like Silicon Valley. So we had machines that were up and down in the valley, but actually downtown was just not a place. It just wasn't a spot that we had anybody who was like Abe, who could see the proposition. And I think mainly, and Abe can probably speak more to this too, because he probably did quite a few searches to find out what spaces cost up there. But I think most people who are trying to start a business in San Francisco are immediately put off by the square foot rental cost. Like it's so absurd now in that particular city, more than any other city in the country, that it's a little bit daunting when you see that monthly number. So I don't know, Abe, if you want to speak maybe to kind of what it could fluctuate to, but I mean, most people who are listening to this don't understand the unique proposition that is real estate in San Francisco, right?
Yeah. Let's see. Price. I saw stuff all over the place. I mean, there was like 250 square feet for, $2,000 a month, which is like, whoa, that's insane. And then
that is insane.
I was like, oh boy, okay. And then there were, probably that. I mean, I was looking for a place that was around anywhere from 800 to 1,000 square feet. We ended up getting a smaller place, but it would range from anywhere from $4,000 to $7,000 a month for rent. So yeah, it wasn't cheap, that's for sure. And but I think we got a pretty good setup here.
So I suppose that they based on that and the fact that their rents are incredibly expensive in San Francisco, there, the ARX was an ideal fit because you don't require a 6-7+ piece facility, and which would take up obviously a lot more space. So it's this particular context where ARX can really be a great fit. Mike, is that something that you've seen? Is that growing in popularity in terms of like smaller setups, like similar to Everstrong, kind of popping up?
Yeah, and not only just in high rent districts, but just in general. I think a lot of people understand the value of starting small in their business get a clientele, you can always, expand and change. But I mean, most people are shooting right now for, we'll call it 500 as the bare minimum, but you could probably get away with something even smaller. And Abe, yours might be under 500 if I recall.
Yeah, we're about 500 square feet right now.
Yeah, but I mean, and he has other equipment in there too. So I mean, you could easily fit this in like a 15 by 15 little office space if that was like what you wanted to do. But I think in general, it's about 500 to 1,000 square feet, and they're looking for something that's very simple to move into, that is easy to operate and doesn't take a lot of human capital to clean up all the bathrooms and keep the place looking nice. And ultimately, too, it's getting started at a minimally viable product is a very good idea. And that's definitely what San Francisco knows all about. And that's exactly what Abe has done. It's really impressive when you see what he's created in such a small space. And yeah, ARX fits perfectly in that type of model.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I would tell you that I have 9 pieces of equipment in here, and it's not packed. I did a good layout. But I would also say that the next place that I open, I think I'll just have more ARX. That might sound a little bit like, what, really? I can do so much with them, especially the Omni. If there are moves that I have to sub out for people, this is like a nuts and bolts thing. Some people can't do some movements for whatever reason. And then you need a way to be able to train them so that they can get a benefit, but work around whatever limitation that they have. And I can do a lot of different things on the Omni and work things out and change positions. And so I could totally do it with just that equipment. And I think I would like it because it would even look even more clean. But that's just a personal preference. Anyway.
So yeah, I hear what you're saying. So consistency across all the different pieces of equipment within the facility is quite important to you.
I like the look of it. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Just on what you were saying there, Mike, in regard to a minimum viable product. Now, this is really interesting to me because on the surface of it, Abe, you were talking about how it almost seemed like a no-brainer to you when you discovered, high intensity training, and then these types of, this type of equipment. You thought, well, this is surely going to be successful, and people are going to want to do this. And it's one of those things where I wonder, did you actually do any kind of validation before you did any, put any money down or made a lot of big commitments? Did you go around and talk to people or ask people if they'd be interested if you set something up? Did you do anything like that, or did you just go for it?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I went and I talked to Pat. So, Owen was like, hey, man, you got to go check out these ARX machines. And I was like, all right. So I went to go talk to Pat. And I talked about, how he was set up with the ARX company, how long he'd had it, what his business was like. And then I trained on the machine. And I'll say that what I noticed right off the bat was that the quantification of the training and the ability to trend your workouts, it's tracking. For people who haven't tried this, it is tracking like foot-pounds of torque every second while you're exercising. It's moving with the potential, and you're acting with your force against it, and it's measuring. When I saw that, I just thought about how many times, I forgot to bring my notebook and then I recorded something on a phone, or, that was one thing, right? Like, oh, wow, this is all tracked automatically. That's awesome. But then I realized I've done a couple workouts. Look at the difference. It tells you the difference, like percentage increase, decrease. And you can pick different workouts, right? So, and I can't tell you, when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's big. The other thing that I realized is when I'm moving a weight, I don't really know the level of intensity that I'm moving the weight. don't really know and especially like if you're moving a weight. Let's say you pick up a dumbbell and you're pressing 100 pounds. It's 100 pounds each way, no matter what, right? And humans are stronger in the eccentric. So the only way to really get into the eccentric is to get creative or get a partner to help you. But you can't see what you're doing in terms of like what's actually happening from like a force perspective. Unless you're doing like 2-leg, single leg, then you know. But there's a lot of risk in that. And I just realized that it could show, and the design of the thing is almost like it's adapting to you, but really you're adapting to what it's doing, and you can see your eccentric strength, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, like negatives is supposedly like this advanced form of training that you do after you've been training for a long period of time or something like that, but it's built right in, and I just began to realize like, wow, like this is going to be more effective for a number of reasons. And so when people come in, I show them their eccentric strength that they have largely not used unless they perhaps had like tripped and fallen and caught themselves with their hands, or they jump off a ladder, and they're like, oh wow. And I'm like, so when you train on these older things, you really can't get into that eccentric strength. You're really not taxing your muscular system from that perspective. And then the other thing is, so I have this person, he's 78 years old, who started training with me in November, and right from the start. And I love bringing up his leg press chart, because after 1 month, he was 88% stronger maximally, and then his output had increased by some other number. The second month, his output had gone up threefold, and he'd clearly doubled his maximal leg strength. Then he took a break, came back, and then I think like the workout like on the 16th recently, he's almost quadrupled his leg strength on the output side and almost tripled it from the maximal. And this person is like 78 years old, and I can show him how much stronger he's getting. And just like, the look on his face, being able to see that, like he wouldn't have been able to see that before. Like imagine if he went somewhere else and they were trying to help him get stronger for his life. Like it's a different ballgame when you can show somebody how they're getting stronger, and like over time, and how they fluctuate. And I mean, what I described sounds linear. It is when you measure, I'd say new people in the beginning, there's a lot of linear. But he's had a couple of points where he flattened out and then maybe went down a little bit and then went back up. And I could show him, it's like, you can't always expect linear results from your body. There's always little ups and downs and gains, but because we have this data, we can sort of show them and give them like this whole perspective that they wouldn't otherwise have. So I saw that when I was with Pat. I saw that in the machines. I saw that it was a game changer.
Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously, I suppose that was all you needed to experience that and to see the potential, and then that probably gave you enough in terms of motivation to get it going. What do you want to just talk a bit about the business model and what you've created? And if you're comfortable, it'd be really interesting to hear about some of the numbers that you're willing to share on that.
Oh, yeah. So let's see. We have like a. Let's see. We have like a price per session. Like if you were to pay like a single session rate, it's about $80. And then we do 4 packs. We do 12 packs. We do memberships. We do partner memberships. We do twice a week memberships. Let's see. The reason we do 4 is that some people want to try it and get familiar with it. They know that they want to try it, but they're not sure if they want to stick with it, or their schedule is a difficult schedule. So that's the 4-pack. Then there's the 12-pack, and the 12-pack is based upon a neuromuscular adaptation period of about 6 weeks for just about any human. Some people are faster and slower. They get stronger just neuromuscularly, and the next 6 weeks is laying down new fiber. And so I try to steer people into the 12 because that's that way they have plenty of time to feel the effects of the training, both in terms of like feeling stronger and then starting to actually look stronger, or to notice the strength or notice how their body changes. So that's the 12-week. That's about $900. And then we do like a 1X monthly, once a week monthly, and that's $300. And then we have people who want to train twice a week, and that's around $500, I think. And then we have partner memberships. And partner memberships we created because we realized, we have a lot of partners training here. It was probably 30% of our business were like a wife comes in and the husband comes in, or 2 roommates. And then they like see the change in the other person, and they're like, "What are you doing?" They're like, "Oh, I'm over at Everstrong SF," and they're like, "Oh, cool, I'm going to come check that out." So, and the partner rates are cheaper just because it's a thank you to other customers for bringing people they care about into us. And then we do a 12-week body transformation where we'll coach through diet as well. And that's $1,500. That includes DEXA scans, before and after photos. And this program has been really successful. I think I've gotten some of my most staunch referral advocate customers from this. I kid you not. Yesterday, there's this group of like 5 clients in this program, and they created this Facebook group called Abe's Angels. And they invited me to it, and I just saw this, and they've been talking and sharing things, and I felt so honored that they invited. That program has had a big effect for those people. And I will say that if I talk a little bit about the kinds of customers that I get, maybe that might be useful too.
Go for it.
So there are definitely the quantified self biohacker folks that really, really like this training. And then there are the busy executive folks, like vice president of this or that, or the top VC at here or there. They like coming in and doing this training because it's super efficient. The biohackers like it because it's the minimal effective dose of exercise, and it's quantified. So seeing those numbers is good. There's another set of customers, which is I'd say women over 40 who are concerned about bone density. And then if you were to then like split that a little bit, you'd find perimenopausal women. And these women are, they're in a low estrogen state, and so lipolipase is not downregulated. So they pretty much whatever they do, whether they're trying to go bicycling or trying to go on some Whole30 diet or something, they're just not able to lose weight, and they're really frustrated because of the hormonal changes in their bodies. And some of them can't do hormone replacement for whatever reason. HERS2 genes or something like that. So those kinds of customers respond really well to this kind of training, and then a low glycemic approach to food. And so those people, when they start to feel results, they talk about it because they have been struggling with something that's really been frustrating them. So that's just a really, really important segment. And I didn't know that this would exactly happen. My bets were that it was like the busy executive and the quantified self folks as the primary set of customers, but it's actually shifting a little bit more to the latter that I had just spoke of. And I had actually done a lot of practice in that because my wife is one of those people. And we've really had to experiment and figure things out there.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, ARX. Are you looking to create a cutting-edge, high-intensity training facility? Are you confused on what equipment to use or how to separate yourself from the masses? Well, then ARX Fit might be the answer you're looking for. I asked Mike Pullano from ARX a few questions about how ARX machines are challenging the status quo of the exercise industry around the globe. Mike, if you could, give the listeners a quick summary of why ARX is so different from the traditional machines or tools they're used to seeing in most exercise facilities.
ARX is totally different than anything you've seen before. This isn't just another weight stack machine. We've looked at the last 40 years of exercise technology and used that knowledge to create something entirely new. ARX uses a new form of resistance, a motor, and we pair that motor with computer software so that we can maximize the safety, effectiveness, and efficiency of your workouts. So you may be asking, okay, but how does ARX compare to weights? Traditional machines you see in gyms today are based on lifting metal weights and battling gravity. What people don't realize is that when you're forced to lift a static weight like this, one that doesn't adapt or change while you use it, you're underloading yourself rep after rep. And this unnecessarily limits your ability to make improvements. With ARX, we've taken a totally different approach. We removed weights and gravity from the equation altogether. Instead, ARX combines our patented motorized resistance with our custom computer software to provide you with the world's safest, most effective, and most quantified form of resistance training ever. When you train with ARX, you are training to your perfect level of resistance, both positively and negatively 100% of the time. No more guessing what weight to use. ARX does all of that for you, instantly and automatically. We'll also track and measure every second of every rep, so you can quantify all of your workouts to find out if you're improving and by exactly how much. Whether your goals are bigger muscles, increased strength, stronger bones, or just to look good in a bathing suit, ARX can help you achieve all of these and more, but do so in a fraction of the time it would take compared to traditional equipment. If you're looking for the most efficient, most effective, and most quantified piece of exercise equipment on the market today, then look no further than ARX.
Thanks, Mike. That all sounds really impressive. If you'd like to learn more about ARX, visit arxfit.com and mention that you heard about ARX on the Corporate Warrior podcast to receive an exclusive deal of $500 off shipping and installation off your ARX machines. It's very interesting how you talked there about the kind of how these people become referral advocates. Are you at a point now where most of your business is coming via referral? How are you driving business now?
Yeah. So when we first started, we got written up in a local publication headline, and that was like a boom in the neighborhood. We had 60 people sign up in 3 days. And that was pretty wild to start with that many people right off the bat. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And then we tried different kinds of tactics to get more customers. We tried online advertising. We also were working in Business Networking International, BNI, and probably the number one things that actually work. I really don't feel like online advertising actually worked for us. I think what worked for us is foot traffic, and then now we get referrals every week from existing clients. So there was like this sort of initial wave of getting new people. And now those people have been here and they've stayed and they've gotten results and they're happy about it. And now they're telling friends. And it seems like just about every referral is from an existing client right now. And they're multiple each week, which is pretty cool. It's a great problem to have. I will say that I am now very, 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 very busy. We have, myself and Owen and we have Pat, we have Austin, we have Sally, but we're still there's a lot going on here every day.
Will you be hiring more people at the current location, or will you be looking to scale out?
Yes.
Both.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, that's really interesting because it's a really common theme on this podcast when I speak to new strength training facilities that have just taken off. They always have really good locations with very good footfall. They've worked hard to try and find a location where there's plenty of foot traffic, and that's really helped the business start up. And then I guess kind of the referral and word of mouth mechanism kicks in after that. So how many workouts are you doing a week now, Abe? Just to get some perspective on the kind of workload.
I think there's 70 a week right now.
Wow, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going up each week. It's going up. So,
Mike, last time we spoke, you were talking about when gym owners are thinking about ARX, maybe starting an ARX-based business or replacing their stuff with ARX. You did some math to figure out, okay, you need X amount of clients to get a return on investment on the way you currently price it and lease it. Do you want to talk a little about that for those that are listening that may be considering ARX for their business, who want to know, what type of demand and kind of customer flow they need to generate in order to actually, make a good living doing this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in general, though, it's going to vary quite a bit in terms of people's the monthly nut that they need to cover. So in Abe's situation, I mean, he has an extremely high rent that if you go to, I was just in Spokane, Washington, right? Like, I know for sure that they're not paying anywhere near what Abe is paying in downtown San Francisco. So that changes all of the total amount of customers that you need to come through the door. I think what Abe has done really successfully is he's provided value in various forms. So some people, they stick to a single session and it's just like a package deal. Other people are like, okay, I want to get them on a membership. I think Abe's done a great job of diversifying and getting an offering that will fit all sorts of different people, as well as rewarding certain people coming through the door with the partner memberships and those types of things. So whatever his number is, he's finding creative ways to cover it. And one of the things when we talk about just numbers in general and the way that ARX is structured for the listeners, we're a lease model. So getting a machine is not going to cost you a ton on the upfront, which gives Abe and Owen, for that matter, his business partner, who's running a different location, an opportunity to get creative, to test some things, but not have $40,000 on day one. I had to pay this guy, and then you're kind of stuck paying that off. It's exactly like a car, right? Like you don't need a ton up front, and you can immediately enjoy the experience. And so that's the model that ARX has had from day one. And it allows business owners to get started without having to cover a huge monthly nut that they have to achieve. And that just creates a lot of stress for a lot of people in, franchises or who are starting a traditional model where they have a large square footage, they have all this equipment in there, and they haven't even opened their doors, and they're already 120,000 or, whatever the average is. But it's roughly around there to start a traditional facility. So Abe did the opposite, right? He found a good spot. Yeah, the rent was high, but he kept it low square footage, and he invested in technologies that didn't put him underwater right away and didn't put in a ton of stress on his business, so that he can do the things that he's doing right now, which is getting creative, getting organic growth, and ultimately then, Abe, what is it? So it's November to you're about 6 or 7 months into this right now?
November, December, January, February, March, April, 6.
Yeah, so about 6 months in, and he's already now considering, okay, what's going to happen in 6 months from here? Here's our flow, here's our bottom dollar. And then he can think about expanding, but he didn't tie himself to too much on the upfront. And I think that's a key factor for how we've chosen to sell to our customers.
Yeah. And another thing that I would add is that the way that I looked at it was that, like, how many customers do I need to break even for my scenario? And for us, that was 30. We needed 30 people. We're like, we can get 30 people. We can totally get 30 people. That covers the rent. That covers the cost of all of our expenses. Let's and you guys can run the numbers on that because I gave you some pricing, and that was it. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to get a lot more than 30. It's just like, how long does it take before we get to 30? And I'll tell you, we were profitable on the 11th day that we opened up. And I will say that some of that was really good timing. Some of that was really good timing on the Hoodline article that came out on us. And some of it was not chickening the hell out on the whole wood floor thing. But yeah, on the 11th day, yeah, that was pretty awesome. I didn't expect that. We didn't expect that at all. We thought, okay, maybe in January we'll have, all the people that we want, for breaking even and making a little bit of money. But yeah, now we have more than double that, and more are coming in. So I don't actually think it's a 6-month thing for the next moves that we do. I think it's sooner. But at the same time, I don't know, might like a little vacation.
No, that's really cool, and a really interesting success story. And I think it's important what you did. You take something that's quite abstract, like, okay, what is this going to work? How many clients do we need? And you actually go, okay, well, these are our costs, and we know exactly. If we lease it for X, then we know we need 30. And when you do that, it makes these types of this type of adventure way less scary because you can see that it's actually very achievable. Mm-hmm. Mike, just something I wanted to ask you, and I guess a kind of a more of a challenging question. I understand and appreciate the rationale behind the way ARX is priced. But I know there might be some people listening to this who are maybe thinking about starting a business or may have already started, who perhaps went down a different route. Let's say they bought, a 6-7 piece Nautilus or MedX setup. And obviously in that context, you're not looking at an enormous outlay. You're looking at, depending on where you are and what you source. If you're in the US, you might be able to get a 7-piece MedX set up for maybe 15,000-20,000, which is kind of less than some of the numbers you quoted. So what would you say to the person that is sitting down and they're looking at ARX, they're looking at your lease model, but they're also looking at these other alternatives that, okay, they're more upfront, but you're talking 10, 15, 20,000, which, if the business obviously works out, you could pay that back pretty quickly and it doesn't become a huge burden. So how would you address that? How would you differentiate?
Yeah. And no, that was the word I was going to use, is differentiation. So if you have a business that's succeeding currently with a more traditional setup, by all means, continue on. I mean, there's no reason why you necessarily have to change. But what we see and what we hear, and Abe can probably expand upon this a little bit further, is that model is commoditized, at least in the States it is. So when you have a setup like that and you're trying to market to customers and try to bring in new clients, at some point in time, they look at what you've created. Let's just for evidence-based, high-intensity training, whatever type of studio you want to call it, but like a very high-intense resistance training setup with those traditional tools. They've seen that, and then they immediately compare. Even though that's a better offering, the three of us understand, and a lot of listeners understand of how potent of an offering that can be. But they look at that and they compare that immediately to the place that's down the street that costs $30 a month. Or they compare it immediately to, we have a thing called ClassPass here in the States, where it's like $99 and you have X amount of tickets or whatever they call them. I'm not sure what the term is, but you can go to all the yoga classes and strength training classes and group classes. That's $100, and you have an unlimited amount of these. So like you look at the model of what's been built over the last few years, and it's just a very commoditized setup. So you can have this amazing offering that can give people amazing results, and they immediately devalue what you've offered just because of the current climate. At least again in the United States, it is where if you walk into Abe's place, you might see some of that traditional stuff, but you're immediately going to see something that's different. And it's not only just looks different, but it feels extremely different. And is something that truly differentiates Abe from the place down the street, from the class pass, from the yoga studio, or whatever anybody else is going to compare to.
Do you mind if I jump in? There are a couple things that are actually really important. So, like this question of like, do I go with, this leasing model for an ARX, or do I go with buying my own MedX? I think I would back up to a different place, actually. I would say, like, who do you want to be? What do you want your brand to be? What is it that you really want to create? And like for me, like I want to be on the front. I want to be on the front of technology. That's one of the things. I want to be on the front of exercise. I want to know like everything that's going on hormonally in someone's body, and I can't see it, right? So I want to know those things because I want to be able to help people from that perspective, right? I think that the MedX stuff is totally tried and true. And if you're like, you know what, I want to go the tried and true route, and that's who I am, great. That will totally work. It will totally work. But I'll tell you what happens, like in my place. When people come in, I tell them, I take them, I walk them in. This is the rectangle where we get the work done. Over here, I show them a MedX overhead press machine. And I say, if you've been in a gym, by the way, this is not a gym, this is a lab. If you've been in a gym before, this probably looks very familiar to you. It looks like something you've seen before, but it's not. This is actually from a physical therapist's office. It's selectorized. You can control the range of motions for people so you can get strong even if you have some shoulder impingement. And they're like, oh, okay, that's different. And then I say, and here I have the strength training robot. And I turn them around and I show them the Omni. They have a different look on their face when they're looking at that versus when they're looking at the overhead press. Like they've seen an overhead press before. They've never seen this other thing. And then I show them like, it's 15 different exercises. Like, look, here's how it draws things out on the screen for you. I show them people's data. Like that does not compare. It just doesn't compare between the two. And I'm also kind of I'm excited about these kinds of things. So I probably add to that mix and I probably fire them up a little bit in that direction. But honestly, when I look at people's faces, so I used to work in technology and do product management and design. And I learned when you do user research, you look at people's faces for their reactions. And in a microsecond, you can see whether or not they're either liking what you're saying or not. You can tell by their body language if they stand back with their arms folded, etc. And they lean in to look at the Omni. They don't lean in to look at the MedX overhead press. So that's just an interesting thing. And another thing to take into account is that this is said all over the world all the time right now because it's totally true, but industries get disrupted by technology. And there will be, I'm sure you know this, Mike, there are going to be other people that enter this space. And probably the ones with the greatest distributorship are going to win as far as who can distribute the most equipment. But these machines are totally going to be the future of exercise. This approach, this quantification, it's going to manifest in different kinds of ways. But it's totally, even like MedX will get hybridized probably with some other kind of technological additions that they do there. That's the direction that it's going to go. That's totally the direction it's going to go.
And I think ultimately, yeah, and I agree, Abe, obviously. But I think ultimately, Lawrence, back to your original question of why choose ARX or over traditional stuff, Well, Abe just described an experience for somebody that's completely unique. They can't match it to anything. And so therefore Abe has a higher value immediately in the customer's eyes. So Abe can charge more. Where the guy that's on the street he's doing a very similar model, but he only has traditional tools. He has to charge less because the customer does not see him as a higher value because they're used to it. This is the tried and true. It's everywhere. It's $20 here. It's $30 there. It's like, oh, you're going to charge me $80 a session? Like, no way. I can go elsewhere for this exact same, whether or not it be exact, they feel it's the same. And I can go down the street to Planet Fitness for $10 a month. So when you're looking to start a business, I mean, that's market differentiation. It's a huge feather in your cap when you're starting. And Abe is reaping the rewards of it every day. When people walk in and they lean in, and it's not to the MedX overhead press, it's to the ARX.
I'll tell you one thing that I was afraid of that I thought might happen. I thought that because they're in the Bay Area, I see trends of things come and go, and people get pretty excited about trends, and they're going to do them for a while, especially like people in the 20 to 30 age range. Like they want to try out all the different sort of exercise modalities. And I thought that the ARX novelty would wear off. I thought that could happen. That was a risk. Like if that was true, then my business would always be suffering to get new clients constantly. But that is not happening, or it hasn't really happened. I know it's still early, and I have to watch for that or something like that happening, but it doesn't look like it's happening. People come in and they're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to just see what my numbers look like today. I'm ready to see like how I'm going to do. And it's so interesting because people are like, I feel great. I'm going to crush it today. And they don't. And people come in, it's like, oh my God, there's no way. I didn't even want to come in and then the personal best all over the place. And it's like, wow, like your brain and your body are not as connected as you thought. Like it's always a surprise for them. Those kinds of experiences are just, they seem highly variable, and it doesn't not get interesting, or it doesn't become uninteresting so far. So anyway, but that was one fear that I did have. I was pretty worried about, but I was willing to take the risk with.
Yeah, I do really like that about the ARX. The fact that each time you go back, you're trying to improve on your numbers, and the fact that you can measure all that is really, really cool. And that's what got me excited about it when I tried out Matt's model down in Brighton in the UK at Mint Fitness. And yeah, I mean, there's a few things you said, Mike, that actually I didn't really think about. I'm, as you guys know, I live in Galway, which is a city in Ireland that no one knows exists. And they do. I mean, it's a beautiful little place, but obviously it's not as well known as some places. And there's no ARX here, obviously. And there's no really sophisticated exercise equipment. There's no Nautilus, there's no MedX. So in my little bubble, I'm thinking, if I set something up here that was based on MedX or Nautilus, it actually would be unique. Right. But that's because I don't live in the US where, obviously Nautilus MedX is much more ubiquitous. And I completely see where you're coming from. If you're not new in creating like a new category and differentiating yourself, it is difficult to charge higher prices. And obviously, it's much easier to do that than to try and compete with what already exists. And because you're not, I suppose you are kind of competing, but because you're offering something so different, it's a lot easier. From what you guys have been saying. Mike, I'd love to hear you elaborate on how you go about onboarding clients or teaching businesses that use ARX to how to onboard clients and also trainers to use the equipment.
Yeah, real quick, just one more point about what we were discussing. Sure. The reason that Abe I forgot what Owen said, but when I first talked to Owen, he said, I don't think Abe has lost a single console at all since day one. Like he's like firing at 100%. And the reason is that, yes, Abe is fantastic at what he does. And the way that he speaks and how he speaks about what his offering is extremely important. But at the end of the day, the numbers do not lie. And the data that we can now, just the software component of what we provide, changes the value proposition tremendously, where it's no longer a, hey, trust me, this is going to work. I literally tell people, do not trust me, anything I'm telling you. I just want you to start. And if you can start, we can show what the numbers are doing. And because the technology is adaptive and it works for everybody, I know it sounds crazy, but it really does. And we can see those people go up. And I don't need to sell them anymore on my service, my business. They are sold by themselves because the numbers tell them that it's working. It's not a trust me, give me your money, and we'll talk in 6 months. It's each session you're getting more and more proof that this is actually doing the thing that I said it was going to do. And that should never be downplayed. But it typically is, because most people only try ARX once or twice. They don't see the progressions that we see all the time with clients and customers in the world. And that's huge. It's just so important to underscore.
Mm. Abe also has a very kind of charming, calm demeanor, and I think that really helps. just listening to him on this podcast, I'm kind of thinking, yeah, I'd buy from him.
He just woos them right in, just gets them right in.
but I hear you, Mike. Nice. I can see how that can be very compelling. And just also for the listeners, quickly, if you're listening to this, you're going, what the hell is ARX? Yeah. There will be plenty of links to videos in the show notes to demonstrate the actual machines that we're talking about, if we don't get a chance to talk about them in detail here. But sorry, Mike, I don't know if you wanted to continue on with regard to onboarding. Yeah,
I'll do a quick my side of things and our side of things, and then Abe can talk about what his experience was like. But in general, it's when you first sign up with us, and let's say you don't have a facility like Abe didn't at the time, we have a whole academy that we put people through. We discuss a lot of the finer points of strength training and just some of the general principles that you would find very, very similar in like a Body by Science. We've just kind of turned them, put the spotlight with ARX involved in that. So it just kind of recolors everything that Doug and a bunch of the people in that world have talked about for years, and just puts a new spin on it. So you just understand how all of this was true, and now it's even more true than we ever thought, because we have this amazing tool that just optimizes and makes everything really simple. So we walk people through all that within Academy. We have a Facebook group that's private, members only, that people can go in and ask questions like, hey, I'm starting my business and I don't know what, let's just say like reservation tool, online reservations and scheduling. Like, what tool do you use? And, 15 people will respond, hey, I use it this way, or pricing and packaging. And so you get access immediately to all the clients that are already out there, who are using ARX and how they're using it, most importantly. So a couple of those things. And then ultimately when we do the install, somebody from our team is always there. And we spend, 2 hours, 3 hours, if we can, walking them through all of the software and the protocols and answering as many questions as possible. And we're totally available on the back end to continue with that training process if necessary. But most of the time, it's so intuitive and so simple, the way we've designed it, that as long as you know the basics, you're off and running day one, and you no longer have to be a professional weight guesser. You don't have to choose the right weight every time for your customer. You just have to get your spiel down about what your business offering is, what this tool is, and the technology takes care of the rest. So as a business owner, it just removes so much of the stress. And as a trainer, there's no charting, there's no anything like that. If you're in super slow, like counting every day, people go to bed just counting 1 to 10, just thinking about it over and over and over again, right? And that's very tiring, and it's just a process that we've used technology to remove. So, Abe, maybe you could talk a little bit about just what your experience has been.
Yeah. For me, I would say that overall, it has been really interesting. And to be more specific, I've had sort of excited points where I felt like I knew exactly what I was doing, and I had other points where I was really frustrated because I had run into a hard spot. So let's see. Let me think about this for a second so it's coherent. On the body by science approach, with the MedX machines, you're training people, in a time under tension protocol, gently incrementing weights as their form allows and their ability to handle going to failure, etc. That's not exactly accurate, but it's representative. And then on the ARX, I went through the academy, and I actually got to have a lot of time with Mike when he came to upgrade the Omni, which was a lot of fun. Seeing the Omni all in pieces all over the place, and I was actually impressed to see Mike's mechanical skills from product manager to product manager. I very much enjoyed seeing your technical skills on the machine, and then we talked a lot about protocols, because with the ARX, you have protocols. You have protocols too on the MedX, but some of them are specifically defined, and it becomes a lot more visible. And I will say that it was a journey for me, because in the beginning, I think I treated it, I did this approach on the ARX where I had people, increase their intensity each week, similar to how we were doing the MedX. And I got to a point where people started really, I remember one day where everybody's numbers were just like way off. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm having like my wife trains here, and she was just super pissed about her numbers. And there was this whole psychology around the numbers that I really had never run into with MedX, really, because I realized something. On the MedX, I can help people get higher numbers with a little bit longer of a static hold. I can have them move a little bit more slowly. I can have them do half reps. And I've realized, holy shit, I've been cheating a little bit to help people go a little bit further on the MedX. And I realized, like, oh, I can't do that. This thing is too precise. And then I was like, okay, wait a minute. How do I want to operate with this? So then I had a couple conversations with the ARX folks about, like, hey, what's the progression do you see with people with numbers? And we got to talking about it, and sort of the takeaway I had was like, hey, it's not, you don't try to play the NFL every week. So, like, when you come to train, it's not like you're trying to win the Super Bowl every time. And then I began to come up with protocols. Like, here's an example. Like, I might have somebody who starts do a 2-minute time under tension protocol across the Big Five, and I'll have them do initially a subjective percentage of effort, like 50% reps, 75% rep, 85% rep, and then hundreds after that. And as I began to come up with those kinds of progressive protocols, Owen, my good partner, sent me an email exchange from Doug McGuff and someone on the ARX, and he actually described exactly what I was doing, and I was like, okay, cool, good, that sounds about right. So I began to come up with all kinds of different protocols with people, and it's made like, here's a couple of examples. So let's say I run with somebody on an incremental protocol for 4 workouts at 2 minutes, and then they're able to work pretty hard. So, and then their graph is basically like up and to the right all the time. So I'm like, okay, now we're going to change your graph to a triangle, meaning warm up, work your ass off, recover, or like fatigue. And then we'll look at how much we can fatigue you. And I drop their times down to 1:30, and we'll run with this protocol probably until like the 9th or 10th week. And then we'll do static strength tests and then do some assessments for how we want to proceed. For the next kind of protocol, whether we want to try and do like 40% in-road protocols with them, etc. Or then I'll have people who say like, I want the beach body, I want bigger muscles. So I'm like, okay, we're going to switch your protocol. We're going to instead focus on your negatives so that we can damage the muscle fibers, stimulate more recovery, and gain muscle size. So we're going to shorten your positives, and we're going to lengthen your negatives. And so we've got this whole negative protocol that we can run for a period of time. And just be aware your strength numbers are probably going to drop over time because of the adaptation that we're aiming towards. And I will say, if I just stop for a second, I've got lots of protocols. I have like a 12 rep, 50% protocol that I do, which is my recovery protocol for people. When someone comes in and they blow their numbers away, I know the next week they might be down a little bit because they've jumped into a whole new zone. So, and here's an important point. I'm not talking about like, are your numbers better than last week? I'm talking about like, okay, what zone are you in terms of output and maximal effort? Like, because someone could jump to say 400 and they were at 350 before. They're in a new zone. And I was like, yeah, you can expect to see a little bit of up and down in this new zone for a little bit, and you'll flatten out. And then you'll burst out to 450, as an example. And so I've got this 12 rep 50 protocol that I do, which is essentially if someone comes in and they just like totally blow it out of the water one week, I'd like for them to come in for the next week and do the 12 rep 50 protocol, which is going to get them more blood and oxygen to assist with recovery. And especially if they're pretty sore, that could help. Although due to the repeated bout effect, people get less and less sore on this in general. But yeah, and then I might put them back into an incremental. So I will say that the ARX folks have been very, very helpful in helping me determine like what kind of protocols to use when. But I've also come up with a lot of my own protocols. And what's really cool, is I can use the numbers to tell me if my protocols suck or not. That's so cool. I don't know.
So all that being said,
really listen to that for a second, because I try out protocols, and if the numbers go up over time, I know that it's working. And if they don't, then I'd take that protocol out of rotation.
And we love when we hear that stuff, Abe, because what you just said is you just immediately graduated to the 400 level class, because all the 100 level stuff is already taken care of for you. Like your range, and for the people who are listening and don't know, we probably should definitely do a part 2, Lawrence, where we can dive into this a little more.
Sure.
But in general, when you're on a MedX machine, the range of motion is set somewhat based on the physical limitations of the machine, but the speed isn't. And so in the varied resistance, there's only so much. So there's constant adapting that you're doing and worrying about, okay, the turnaround speeds, and don't go too far, and make sure that when, it's too easy for you, I'm going to help you and on a force negative for these last few reps. Attempting to solve all these problems. And that takes some trainers, years to perfect. And there's some really good, I just call them weight guessers, because that's really what everyone's doing. And there's some people who are so good at that, and they've spent a whole career doing it, and they know just the right amount to push on somebody to make the negative work for them. But with ARX, none of that matters anymore. And that's not to downplay the skill set that's been acquired by those people, but if you can remove that, I'm sure most of them would all agree that they would be happy to do so that they can go and work on these 400 level protocols. So immediately Abe goes from, I don't have to worry about what weight to choose, no matter what day, what their the client's recovery profile is. I don't have to worry about range of motion. I can control the speed in both directions. I can change the speed, 5 seconds one way, 10 seconds the other way. I can only do half of a repetition. He's talking about negative only for hypertrophy and tearing the muscle fibers. But you can also do concentric only, the positive, and really deplete glycogen. I mean, you can literally just break off half of a rep. And with a weight, you can't do that. You have to, whatever you lift, you have to lower. But here you could just lift, or the vice versa. You could just lower. And now he has the ability as a trainer to think so much bigger than he ever would have, because he would have been worrying about all these little things that ARX really solves. So I don't know if you agree with that, but I see that over and over again with people who are less experienced. They can immediately jump to these higher levels of training and protocol.
Yeah, with people that I want to help lose weight, I'll do more focus on the positives to exhaust them and deplete blood sugar and glycogen. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it is really impressive how flexible the machines are and the number of protocols you can do, and it is really exciting. Just, I guess, final question for you, really, Mike, and then we'll wrap up, and we'll definitely have to do a part 2 because there's so much more to cover in terms of the machines and the exercise selection and stuff like that. One of the issues that I know a number of people have faced trying to acquire ARX is the current kind of distribution setup. And I know, from what I understand, if you're not in the US, then the leasing option isn't available to all countries. But I just want to understand what's the strategy around that at the moment in terms of the distribution on a global scale.
Well, I mean, with each new customer who wants our technology in their country, I mean, we've basically just figured out the process and the way to do it. And so, we have 10 machines that are in Perth, Australia. We have machines that are in Russia, a couple that are in Barcelona and Madrid. And you've been to the Brighton one in the UK. So, I mean, in all sorts of Canada, you name it, we got it up there. So those are, we're still in the early parts of this growth of this technology. And each time that we have a customer that is in a different country, there's obviously a couple questions that we have and some things that need to be organized. But we're at a stage where we can deliver pretty much anywhere into any one and have a successful process with that. So did that answer your question?
Kind of, and I appreciate it can be very cost prohibitive perhaps to do your leasing business model on a global scale right from the outset. But is that the goal in the future? Because from what I understand, those that have, I could be wrong, but those that have acquired ARX in other countries, they have had to pay for it up front in most cases. Is that incorrect or?
Yeah, it's a little bit different, and we're toying with a couple different ways to make it advantageous for international orders and customers. Honestly, I would say just reach out to us if you're in another country and you're looking to acquire ARX. We're flexible. We're a small company and we have the ability to be very nimble in the way that we go to market, and we're always trying to improve and help our customers and mainly just grow our technology. So if you can help us do that in another country, let's talk.
Cool. I know that obviously, majority of people listening to this are based in the US and Canada. But I'm being a bit selfish and I do have obviously listeners worldwide. So I know that some of them who may be, who I actually am talking to, on email, that they're showing interest and, they're trying to figure out kind of, if they can, how they can be creative and I guess potentially work with you guys to make it work. Guys, this has been really, really fun. Abe, thank you so much for telling your story, and Mike, appreciate you being able to kind of go through a lot of the topics around the ARX to explain it better for the listeners. Do you both want to just take turns now to just let the listeners know the best way to find out more about you? And you'll start with yourself, Abe?
Oh, sure. Let's see. I am Abraham J. Williams, and you can go to EverstrongSF.com, and there's information about, and you can definitely contact me through there for sure. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and if you wanted to look at my career profile or whatever. But I'm really into connecting about this work. So EverstrongSF.com and reach out to me for there. One other thing that I just wanted to say that I was just kind of thinking about is I would really like to thank Tim Ferriss for writing that 4-hour body book, and for talking about Doug McGuff's Body by Science. And I would like to thank Doug McGuff for writing that Body by Science. And I'd like to thank David DeSisto for having his place in San Francisco, and Owen for being there and then for partnering with me, because this little chain of books to people has been just like a wonderful ride.
Yeah, I followed the exact same chain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the podcast is the 4-hour body was probably the catalyst.
Mm.
You know, I saw the Geek to Freak and the strength training thing, and surely that can't be possible. And then obviously seeing the bits in there that were the excerpts from Body by Science, and then going on to reading Body by Science, and then that pretty much being the entire inspiration for the blog and the podcast, but to be honest. So no, I can completely relate to what you're saying. Mike, what's the best way for people to find out more about you?
Well, first off, that makes 3 of us, because that's the exact same path that I took to find ARX eventually. So, Tim, he lives in Austin now, so one day we'll get him over here to check out some ARX and hopefully blow his mind and thank him personally for it. But yeah, for me, it's just reach out to us at ARXfit.com. Please go to the YouTube side of things if you want to look at and see how do you do a leg press on the Alpha, or a belt squat on the Omni, or talk to me a little bit about what does a workout look like with the software running. I think that will really put together some things for people who are listening to this who haven't experienced the technology in person or haven't even seen it. And I think it'll just really get some ideas running in your head. And I'll say one more thing too. I don't want this to turn into an ARX only conversation here. Well, mainly if you're listening and you're doing the strength training stuff with weights, it's incredible and it so works. And the only thing that we found is that there's still more. There's still more to be had physically. People talk about muscular fatigue and genetic ceilings. I look at things as you're limited by that tool to reach those things. So when Lawrence, I've heard you talk I pretty much reached my, I'm plateauing and I'm at my genetic ceiling. That might be somewhat true, but you're not at the ceiling. I promise you that. And I know for a fact, because I've seen it on the numbers, people who think they're there just get ramped up tremendously, 50, 100% still in terms of strength gains or whatever they're looking for. And we know that with the numbers, we know that with the technology. The software is this key factor. So if you're out there and you think, I've seen it all, done it all, and I'm at my peak and this is boring, I have to do the same, I have to go up in quarter-pound increments. I promise you that's not true. I promise you that there's still more. There's a better stimulus out there so that you can get a better response. And that's what we're trying to bring to the world. We're just trying to help everybody and really take, what we say, democratize exercise, bring it to the masses so that the people can be their best and do their best.
I'm intrigued, skeptical, but intrigued.
Oh, we love it. Yes. The skeptics are my favorite.
And we'll certainly dig into this more in terms of the gains in part 2, Mike, because I'm very intrigued, and I've noticed you're in excellent shape yourself, so clearly it's worked for you as well. I know that you train on ARX as well. For all the listeners, obviously, visuals would be very helpful to accompany this conversation. And there'll be plenty of links and resources in the show notes. And to find the show notes and the blog post for this episode, please go to corporatewarrior.co/Everstrong. And if you want to find a list of all the episodes of the podcast, please go to corporatewarrior.co/podcast. And until next time, guys, thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. Before you head off, head on over to corporatewarrior.co/ebook to get your free high-intensity training Google Sheet to track your training progress. And get my ebook with 20 interview transcripts with some of my top guests, including Dr. Doug McGuff, Drew Bay, and Bill Simone, on how to optimize muscle gain, fat loss, and overall health in an efficient, effective, and sustainable way. Head on over to corporatewarrior.co/ebook now and enter your email address for instant access. This episode is brought to you by ARX, the most innovative, efficient, and effective all-in-one exercise machines I have ever seen. I was really impressed with my ARX workout. The intensity and adaptive resistance was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I love how the machine enables you to increase the negative load to fatigue target muscles more quickly, and I love how the workouts are effortlessly quantified. The software tracks maximum force output, rate of work, total amount of work done, and more in front of you on screen, allowing you to compete with your previous performance to give you and your clients real-time motivation. The ARX uses a computer-controlled motor to give you the exact amount of resistance your clients need 100% of the time. This means that the resistance can never become dangerous, is intuitive and simple to use, and can provide you with all of the results you and your clients are looking for in a fraction of the time. ARX is highly effective and efficient in delivering all of the benefits of exercise, including increased strength, muscle mass, cardiovascular conditioning, bone mineral density, and injury recovery. As well as being utilized by many high-intensity trainers to deliver highly effective and efficient workouts to their clients, ARX comes highly recommended by world-class trainers and brands, including Bulletproof, Tony Robbins, and Ben Greenfield Fitness. To find out more about ARX and get $500 off install when you place an order, please go to ARXfit.com and mention Corporate Warrior in the How Did You Hear About Us field. So again, to get $500 off install when you order, head on over to ARXfit.com and enter Corporate Warrior in the How Did You Hear About Us field.